How else do you get rid of Hamas if you don't go about it in the blunt, brutal manner that Israel is doing? And if you do it the way they're doing it, how do you avoid the kind of casualty rate of people under 18, given that that's half the population?
So, three things very briefly. Number one, you do it by not deliberately targeting civilian targets and schools and hospitals and cemeteries and mosques and universities and churches. You don't have snipers shooting at hospitals or Christian women inside a church. That's how you avoid the casualties. Number two, I don't accept the premise of your question that this is the way to defeat Hamas. I think even if I'm an Israeli hawk, I criticize Netanyahu and say, this is not the way to defeat Hamas. This is actually absurd to think you can defeat Hamas in this way. We have countless episodes from history that show us this is not how you defeat a guerrilla movement, a resistance movement, a terror group, as you say, whatever word you want to use. In fact, you have Israeli generals saying this can't be done in this way. And number three, look, the reality is Hamas is a symptom of the problem. As long as you treat Hamas as the problem rather than as a symptom of the problem, you're never going to get rid of Hamas. Or if you do, by some fantasy means, get rid of Hamas, you'll just get another version of Hamas, because now you've got tens of thousands of orphans. You've got people who've lost their kids, their spouses, their siblings. What, you think they're not going to fight back in the years to come? You think they're not going to take revenge?
Well, that's how I feel.
It's absolute madness to believe.
I feel the same way.
Then we agree. I think you're being a little too generous to the Israelis here, and with the greatest respect, I think your questions reflect a little bit of a naivety about what Israel's doing here. You're starting from the premise that Israel is trying to defeat Hamas. I don't accept that premise. I don't believe that's what Israel is trying to do.
What do you think they're trying to do?
They wouldn't be doing it this way. I think they're trying to take back Gaza. I think they're trying to erase the resistance in Gaza. I think they're trying to get rid of the people from Gaza. I think this is they've mowed the lawn, as they put it in previous wars. This time they're going in to erase the population. There's a plausible genocide.
Okay, but let me ask you that.
If you listen to Israeli officials, as you know, it's laid out in the South African petition, they are very genocidal in their approach to flattening and burning down Gaza. It's not about destroying Hamas. And if it was about destroying Hamas, why has Netanyahu and Smotrich and others talked about how Hamas is an asset to Israel? Why do they say that openly?
One last thing, Gavin, before we get out of here, is I wanted to do a little bit of a teaser. I wanted to do a little bit of a promotion for everyone. Tomorrow is a very special day in the history of the Vanguard, a momentous day, a day that, dare I say, neither of us ever really expected to come. We're going to be interviewing the man, the myth, the legend, Mehdi Hasan. And he's been kicking ass all over the internet for the last 2 years straight now. Anyway, I made a small compilation of some of his best moments that I thought we could take a look at and raw react to, just to get everybody excited, just to get everybody juiced, just to make sure you guys don't forget to tune in live tomorrow at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Absolutely. Super excited for that interview tomorrow. Everyone make sure to smash the notification bell so you don't miss it live. It's going to be a lot of fun and awesome conversation. Be there.
100%. Let's take a look at this just to get everybody amped up.
You get rid of Hamas if you don't go about it in the blunt, brutal manner that Israel is doing. And if you do it the way they're doing it, how do you avoid the kind of casualty rate of people under 18, given that that's half the population?
So, three things very briefly. Number one, you do it by not deliberately targeting civilian targets and schools and hospitals and cemeteries and mosques and universities and churches. You don't have snipers shooting at hospitals or Christian women inside a church. That's how you avoid the casualties. Number two, I don't accept the premise of your question that this is the way to defeat Hamas. I think even if I'm an Israeli hawk, I criticize Netanyahu and say, this is not the way to defeat Hamas. This is actually absurd to think you can defeat Hamas in this way. We have countless episodes from history that show us this is not how you defeat a guerrilla movement, a resistance movement, a terror group, as you say, whatever word you want to use. In fact, you have Israeli generals saying this can't be done in this way. And number three, look, the reality is Hamas is a symptom of the problem. As long as you treat Hamas as the problem rather than as a symptom of the problem, you're never going to get rid of Hamas. Or if you do, by some fantasy means, get rid of Hamas, you'll just get another version of Hamas, because now you've got tens of thousands of orphans. You've got people who've lost their kids, their spouses, their siblings. What, you think they're not going to fight back in the years to come? You think they're not going to take revenge?
That's how I feel.
Absolute madness to believe.
I feel the same way.
Then we agree. I think you're being a little too generous to the Israelis here, and with the greatest respect, I think your questions reflect a little bit of a naivety about what Israel's doing here. You're starting from the premise that Israel is trying to defeat Hamas. I don't accept that premise. I don't believe that's what Israel is trying to do.
What do you think they're trying to do?
They wouldn't be doing it this way. I think they're trying to take back Gaza. I think they're trying to erase the resistance in Gaza. I think they're trying to get rid of the people from Gaza. I think this is their, they've mowed the lawn, as they put it in previous wars. This time they're going in to erase the population. There's a plausible genocide.
Okay, but let me ask you that.
Justice. If you listen to Israeli officials, as you know, it's laid out in the South African petition, they are very genocidal in their approach to flattening and burning down Gaza. It's not about destroying Hamas. And if it was about destroying Hamas, why has Netanyahu and Smotrich and others talked about how Hamas is an asset to Israel? Why do they say that openly, Piers?
Mehdi, why is...
So that first one was a banger that I just really wanted to include because I think from start to finish, he dismantles the entire mainstream media's positioning on Gaza. Even somebody like Piers Morgan, who tries to position himself as a guy who's sympathetic to all sides of the argument, even as a guy who, I let people come on all the time. And then he just barges in and he asks them a million times, but do you condemn Hamas? Like, Mehdi did an excellent job in that exchange in particular. He's engaged with Piers a lot, but I thought that one stood out because from start to finish, he says, I don't accept the premise. This is the reality of the situation. Look at the images that you've already put up behind me, right? And if I am trying to argue that I want to defeat Hamas, this is the opposite of how I would go about it. So we have to then start thinking of the more likely situation, which is that they're actually trying to do an ethnic cleansing and they're trying to do a land grab. And if you believe in, justice and humanity, you have to oppose it. And he forces Piers to confront that he is on the wrong side of history in that exchange.
Oh yeah, totally. And I think he's done such great work on on Piers Morgan's show in particular, taking the perfect approach of, the proper amount of aggression without getting too emotional. I think we've seen Cenk Uygur fall into, the latter half of that a bit too much, where he gets a little bit too emotional, to start screaming at people and really getting in the muck. Mehdi, when he goes on that show, again, he understands the assignment. He's aggressive and he shuts down the bullshit that he's up against, but he does it in a very focused way, without, screaming and getting emotional like Jake sometimes does.
100%. And he can do the same kind of advocacy in all kinds of different arenas, right? To use your Cenk comparison, you wouldn't see Cenk going out here and making the case for Palestine in a setting like this one.
Israel singled out.
Yeah, I don't accept the premise of the question, obviously. It's interesting you should say that Israel singled out. There's a little R going out. Well, if you're watching this on YouTube, go back on YouTube and see that the first Intelligence Squared debate I did was not about Israel. I came here a few months ago to talk about the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and its human rights abuses. So before I even turned up for Israel, I came to condemn Saudi Arabia. And this, I get it. There are lots of UN resolutions condemning Israel. I get that. But if you look at actual practical sanctions, there are no sanctions on Israel from Western countries for human rights abuses. There are against Syria. There are against Russia. There are against Iran. There are against North Korea. So no, I don't think Israel's being singled out. I'd actually like to see sanctions put on Israel so it's treated like other human rights abuses. Consistency. Think your standard. I mean, I would be critical of your...
And I thought that's it. We don't have to play all of it, guys, but those were two specific instances that I wanted to highlight. One, did you see how he turned the crowd? Did you see how the crowd went from booing to cheering for him? Now, imagine another advocate on the left. I can't think of anyone who would do as good of a job, both going on Piers Morgan and, as you said, Gavin, understanding the assignment. Don't let anybody talk over you. Don't let anybody bully you. Don't let people get away with cheap one-liners that are going to make them look good to the audience. You are the intellectual. You are the one with the correct and moral position, and you are the one with the facts. You're going to win. That's the kind of energy that he brought there. He brought the same tone. He brought the same rigor. He brought the same force. When he was like, I'll just talk to the people on YouTube. I don't give a shit if you guys disagree with me at home. He's like, people at YouTube, these people are booing me. I don't give a shit. I am going to talk to the people at home who can be moved, and I'm going to stare down this entire audience of people who came in disagreeing with me. He's like, what am I going to do? I'm going to tell them that I have conviction, that I don't have any prejudice. I'm going to talk about how I came in here and I admonished the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I talked about how, they need to be sanctioned. I will tell you that Russia needs to have all of these things singled out. He was like, I want Israel singled out like the rest of them. He's so honest. He's so forceful, and he's so well equipped to make his audience, or his argument, to the audience, that it's great to watch. It's a treat.
Oh, totally. And that's such a beautiful moment too, because a lot of these Zionist defenders and propagandists, they'll act like, of course, what's the criticism of Israel rooted in? Anti-Semitism. And they'll be like, what? So, all these other theocracies, they get a pass and you only care about Israel. Why are you only criticizing the Jewish nation when it's surrounded by equally barbaric countries and all this stuff? And it's so fucking infuriating because of those of us who actually have principles and are actually been talking about this stuff. We have been talking about Saudi Arabia specifically. For Mehdi to bring that up and be like, bitch, I was just fucking here. The last time I was here, it was to condemn one of these Muslim countries that's in the same region. Yeah, it's great because a lot of people, unfortunately, in that audience that are on Israel's side probably were just conveniently categorizing Mehdi Hasan as someone who was sympathetic to Islamic countries, but hypercritical of the Israeli government. The implication being obvious. So for him to just sweep that away so beautifully, very satisfying to see.
Yep. And last one, another one where he has to contend with the crowd. Let's see how he does.
To account.
I have just one sentence to say about that, is that the entire world wants a ceasefire, and the United States and Israel and, I don't know, the Micronesia and whatever else don't, right? The entire world takes a very different view, unfortunately, to the people in this room and to Douglas and Natasha. The International Criminal Court, the International Court of Justice, the UNHCR, UNICEF, Doctors Without Borders, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, Oxfam, Christian Aid. Yep, you're booing. What does it come to when you're booing Oxfam? What does that tell you about yourselves? You're sitting here booing Oxfam to defend Benjamin Netanyahu. Let me just deal with something you just said. You talked about debunking propaganda. First of all, you can't even get Israeli propaganda straight. The Israeli government's own security agency, Shin Bet, investigated what you just said and said, no, we found no evidence that workers from Gaza were involved in the October 7th attack. Oh, Shin Bet aligned. They're booing Shin Bet, the Israeli security service. Got it.
The Knesset has time and again been asked the simple.
That's
Anyway.
a beautiful one too.
Yeah, I love how he's just got an artillery fire of ammunition ready to go. He's like, International Court of Justice, International,
I'm so jealous of people that can do that. We're good at saying like fuck and shit and a bunch of words like that, but some people can just rattle off the facts, and it's so impressive.
I know. It's something that I would like to get better at over time. I think one of the things is that he's made the case so many times. He spent so much time arguing this, and he knows he's going up against very well-equipped opposition. But yeah, it's such a natural strength of his. It almost comes across effortless. He's so sure of himself. He's so confident, and he's unwilling to be rattled, even when he's on stage, even when he's being booed. He's like fucking making a face and going, what does it come to when you're booing fucking, like, you know what I mean? He is going to take it and throw it right back at them, and he's going to do it in a way that, I think helps. He's British, but he sounds sophisticated.
Right.
He sounds
that
like
accent is a fucking weapon in and of itself.
everybody wants to take him serious. Everybody wants to listen to him, right? And he can be angry and aggressive while still sounding polite and am I gonna are you gonna let me he's like,
That's the British thing though, bro. They really can do that. They can be like rude as hell, but still sound kind of charming in the process. I mean, even Piers Morgan does that constantly. That's what's really funny when the two of them get together and have like a Brit off. They're like, how dare you, sir?
true, yeah. Well, hold on, I'll let you finish, but you've got to let me finish first. It's like, go on then. Yeah.
All right.
Oh.
Say your piece.
Right? Have at it then. Go. The floor's yours. You've got a microphone.
Yes, but either way, guys, for real, you guys have to hit that subscribe button, smash that notification bell, because tomorrow's interview with Mehdi Hasan is, it's surreal that it's happening, and we're super excited. We're super grateful that he found the time in his schedule for our show. And we have some great questions for him, guys. Some of the stuff we've been talking about today, even as far as the path forward for the Democratic Party, for the populist left, who we're going to nominate, what's the right strategy, all this kind of stuff. We're going to be getting into it with Mehdi tomorrow on this show. So if you want to be privy to that conversation, make sure to hit that subscribe button, guys, because like I said, it's going to be a good one.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Very excited. We're going to ask him questions that nobody else on the internet would ask Mehdi Hasan. I promise. Okay. This is the man who sat across from Noam Chomsky and said, what do you think about force the vote? This is the man who said, Noam Chomsky, what are your thoughts on anarcho-primitivism in the face of the Joe Biden-Donald Trump election cycle? We will ask whatever the fuck we want, and we will do it with a smile. And I'm hoping that Mehdi likes us a lot more than Noam Chomsky did.
Yeah, although to be fair, I feel like that's kind of how Noam Chomsky treats everyone.
Oh, it is, 100%.
I remember, yeah, either way. You can be like, I'm a huge fan of your work, Mr. Chomsky. You've inspired me more than anyone else. And he'll be like, all right,
what's your question?
thank you.
Hmm.
Let's get on with this shit.
Whatever your thoughts are on green anarchism or primitivism are utterly and completely irrelevant. It's like, oh, thanks, sir. No, really good.
Was he wrong?
That's
That's what I've had to come to contend with.
Anyway, one last thing we want to shout out before we take in every single one of your super duper chats. If you want to send in a suggestion, maybe we'll marinate on it. Can't make any guarantees, but if you shoot out a great question, suggestion, and we just can't miss it, that's a great way to support the show. And also, just please be here. Don't be anywhere else. Just tune in. tomorrow, 2 p.m. Standard Time, Central Standard. And we've got a banger rest of the week, guys. We've got a show today, tomorrow, fucking Friday, Monday. We've got a show with Kyle Kalinske. It's Murderers Row. It's bangers on bangers on bangers. The Vanguard is back. We can now freely travel around our great city, our wonderful city, Kansas City, the best city in the world. And to any of the dumbasses that I accidentally attracted, I put out the bat signal for guys that live in their mom's basement in California and complain about crime this morning. Kansas City is the greatest city in the world, and Gavin and I would not for all the money in the world move to fucking California.